Alright, my delicious, delicious people. So, you love numbers and math and knowledge? Well, Warframe does in fact reward that a little bit more than skill. But, yeah, skill is very important as well. If you put the effort into something, you can make any character work, and I truly believe that, except for I do believe Inaros may be a little bit shot in the foot. It is a little bit his fault that he is bad, but I will probably leave it as that. I will say that this is actually a really good update for the Simulacrum due to the fact that you can have Steel Path now. And I will be showing you something interesting with the Manic Bombards. So I summoned them in without being Steel Path, so I can show you the functionality does in fact work. Oh, and one more thing is I actually have radiation on these, because if you want to build for weaknesses, I suggest you don't keep in consideration the armor bonus and the armor degradation of heat and corrosive. The reason why is because when you really sum it up, the armor calculation is a diminishing curve. A diminishing curve essentially means that the higher you go, the less you get. So essentially with my Urelli, I will show you right now. Keep in mind that I am going to make a Urelli video about my quote-unquote perfected Urelli. This is 68.4%. Remove that, it becomes 61.3%. She's not perfected yet due to the fact that I do want a Archon Shard before I do it. I need the Archon Shard and I think Blind Rage. So let's do this. And I will be showing you something interesting. As you saw, I summoned them without the main Steel Pass. Then, after the fact, as soon as the game shows out, there we go. I hit the Steel Pass button. I do believe the Steel Pass modifiers are base, and it is also 200 of their defenses. No, 250 of their defenses, sorry. And 250 of their health. When it comes to damage, I do believe it is also 200. I think it's 100% actually. I could be wrong on that. I would have to go and check that, but keep in mind the damage is not too bad, but it is increasing. I think it's inclining. It's an inclining curve. And due to the fact that it's an inclining curve, it's actually why Inaros tends to die around the level 400 in one hit. Due to the fact that they are going from taking half its health to taking all of it, due to the way that the curve works. Which is why it's very important to take into consideration that you need multiple sources of damage reduction if you're going to use the face thinking build. The reason why is due to the fact that once you hit 95, I believe it stops raising, and instead it takes from the 5% that's left over. Which is why having multiple damage reductions is actually a very good idea. Damage transfer, however, which is what your Urelli does as a damage reduction, is quite dangerous. Due to the fact that Maruluna is a separate entity, which is why they had to implement a immunity. And unfortunately, I'm gonna have to kind of sorta step on some toes. Overguard is not, it does not have the capacity to be a kind of health gating due to the fact that it does not have a gating style mechanic. It is a health on top of your health, but Overguard, unfortunately, it does not provide immunities after going away, which essentially means you're just increasing your health. I got a hold of Calvero during the circuit. He unfortunately, at least from what I have seen and what I remember, since I did get him once, he does not have shields, and he does have Overguard, but essentially you're adding health on top of his health, and there is no gating between those healths. The last thing is this, is because you can now do Steel Path, it will now be easier to actually build 4 Steel Paths without having to test it in the mission. Keep in mind, however, because the enemies do fight back, I would suggest going in there after you fully build it in order to get some actual playtesting, because if you don't get playtesting and you're just testing it with numbers, you'll do like a billion damage to one target once a second instead of a billion damage to 10 targets once a second, right? Which, mathematically speaking, that's probably the best idea. So please keep in mind that this does not replace taking it into the mission due to the way that missions work, right? I would suggest, if you really want to use just this to test things, grab the enemies that you would normally see in a certain mission, right? So like, grab butchers and heavies and eximuses and actually stimulate an actual fight if you really want to use just the Simulacrum, right? And I guess the last thing I will say is, actually I meant to say this before, but I need to say it now before I forget. When I was looking at the patch notes and reading them thoroughly, they did say that they were working on making the Simulacrum a little bit more convenient, right? Which means they're working on figuring out whether or not they're going to be adding more stuff to it. In my theory, which keep in mind this is a theory but valid nonetheless, they are working on whether or not they should add higher levels. I don't know if they're gonna do level cap, but I do believe they're gonna raise that. If not, they might be adding acolytes. If they do add acolytes, that would be very great, but I'm not sure if that's the case. That could be the less likely scenario than making it to where you can have at least 500. I feel 500 or 1,000 is probably where they're gonna go, actually, if they don't go for level cap. So I will leave you there with a live, love, and learn, and I will see you in the future. Hopefully not in your nightmares, unless you're into that. Honey, honey. Mwah.